Now, have you guys ever heard of Mount Shasta? Mount Shasta is actually the root chakras of the world and has single-handedly changed my life. And I want to share with you guys the honor that I had of going to Mount Shasta 3 times and really what it did to me and my spiritual journey. I also want to help give you guys some understanding around integration, intentions, and embodiment if you guys do plan on going on any retreats of your own, whether it be with me or somebody else. That way you guys can get the most out of whatever retreat that you go on. Welcome to Awaken with Lexy, the podcast. I'm Lexy, your host, and I am so excited that you are joining me here today. Now, if you're listening to this podcast on one of the podcast platforms, know that you can see the video, which is the first time that we recorded it, or you can see my pretty face on YouTube. Click there if you want to go ahead and check out the video format of this. Now, this podcast, Awaken with Lexy, is all around spirituality, healing, personal growth, and understanding this crazy thing called life. We do so by sharing real life examples to let you know that you're not alone in whatever you're going through. Oh, Mount Shasta. I remember the first time I heard about it. I was actually behind the chair. My client Rosanna, she would always get really fun, unicorn, like crazy color hair, and it would be like an all day, right? So she would literally be in my chair all day, and she was in my chair when we were talking about spirituality, of course, because it always got there. And she's like, hey, have you heard of Mount Shasta? And I was like, what? No, what is this? Tell me more. And she's like, oh yeah, it's like, it's a super spiritual place, and a bunch of weird stuff happens there. You should look into it. So Lexy went a little rabbit hole and got all the information that I needed to know that I have to go there. It's very interesting because, you think about the root chakra and like what the root chakra stands for, right? That's where all of our trauma is stored, all of our childhood trauma, which, if you know anything about me, like childhood trauma is something that I absolutely love to help people heal. I've literally created a modality around inner child healing because I had to heal my own inner child. So of course, on the beginning of my spiritual awakening, I would go to Mount Shasta, root chakra of the world. Now the root chakra also has a lot of like the generational traumas and like all of like the ancestral trauma that is passed down through our DNA. Ancestral trauma that we've all have gone through it. All of our ancestors have trauma. It's passed down until somebody heals it. And I know for a fact that I'm here healing my generational trauma, which we'll get into in another episode. But one of the really cool things with Mount Shasta that really makes it enticing to go is all of these sacred sites. So I know of 12 sacred sites that I've been to, and each site has their own meaning, what it's known for, and all of that. So it's really fun, if you guys do plan on going out there and taking a look at these sacred sites and kind of planning to visit some of them and what they mean and why you would want to go there. So the first time I went to Mount Shasta was actually with that client, Rosanna, which we're going to hopefully do like a live or a Zoom so you guys can kind of hear her side of the story. But the first time I went was actually for my 30th birthday. So I go down this little rabbit hole and I'm like, oh my God, I have to go. I'm like, oh, it'd be so fun for my 30th birthday. And so that's what we did. It was a solo trip, just her and I. We went for my birthday weekend. Happened to fall on the weekend as well, and it was magical. It was magical. The power that mountain has is insane. I call her Mama Shasta because she don't play. She's definitely like a mother. Like, she will keep it real. So when we went there, we had this list of what we wanted to do. We were like, okay, we have to hit these certain sites. One of them we seen was Mossbury Falls, which is like it's like the biggest waterfall, like I guess the longest waterfall that I've ever seen. And it's like a moss covered rock that the waterfall from, like, again, the water from Mount Shasta, as the ice is melting, is coming down this rock side, and it's just gorgeous. And you have a lake, obviously, where the water goes in that you can go and you can swim in. So that was one that we went to. And then we went to Stewart Springs. Unfortunately, Stewart Springs is no longer there, but Stewart Springs is really cool because that's where the divine masculine and divine feminine in water form, they say, kind of cross. And it used to be like a bathhouse where you'll take a bath in hot water, then you'll go in a sauna, and then you'll go in a cold dive in the lake that's right there outside of the bathhouse. And that's an experience. It definitely was an experience. I'm sad that it's not what it once was before, but definitely a place to go and see still, nevertheless, just to kind of see those waters cross. So on these sacred sites, right, again, you're going there to connect with the higher power and yourself and all that nature has to provide for you, that medicine that nature has to provide for you. Now, when we were at these sacred sites, the amount of synchronicities from the moment the trip started to the moment the trip ended was unbelievable. It was unbelievable the amount of synchronicities. So for synchronicities are basically when things align. I know a lot of people can know the understanding of like numbers, right? Where you see 111 or 222 at the perfect time. You have that right thought and then you see a number to confirm. That's like a synchronicity. Basically, it tells me that I'm in the right place at the right time. And so the synchronicities that kind of stand out to me from that first trip, the first one was going up to Heart Lake. I almost stepped on a baby rattlesnake, like stupid close. And for those of you that know, rattlesnakes, especially babies, when they bite you because they're not in control of their venom, you can get seriously hurt from it. And this little snake just slithered off, didn't even shake his tail, just slithered off. I was like, oh. And for me, I'm like, oh, there's the synchronicity. That's a sign. That's a sign of a death and a rebirth. So that's how I took it. I kind of just went away and I'm like, oh, okay, cool. And then on the way up there, you know, you have to drive from Sacramento up to Shasta. And it's like a 2-hour drive from the airport to the actual mountain. And while we're driving there, you know, you're going through like areas that are like legit the boonies, right? Like there's nothing around. So of course you don't have great cell service. So we're like sitting there, we're like listening to Tupac or something on the way up there. And then this really lovey-dovey, I think it was like a 2000, I think this song came out, but it was not Tupac, like nothing even in the genre of like West Coast gangster rap, like at all. It was like a loving song from the 2000s, which I'll get into that one later on another podcast, the significance of that song later. So that song is playing and I'm like, that's weird. So I go to change it. I'm like, let's get back to the vibe. So I change it on my phone and there's no service. So I can't get a new song to upload. I'm like, oh, whatever. Well, let's just turn on the radio. Go to turn on the radio and there's like maybe 3 stations where we're at that has access to FM like music that we'd want to listen to. One of the 3 stations were playing the same exact song. And mind you, it's like a love song and things like that. I'm like, the twin flame journey is it. This is real. I am on a twin flame journey. Because again, the chances of that happening were so slim to none. So again, that synchronicity yet again happened. And there were so many though on that first trip that I can't even think of them all. That's the amount of synchronicities that came through. Now on my actual birthday, it happened to be a full moon on my actual birthday. It was my 30th birthday and there was a full moon that night. And when we were in town at like a little crystal shop, they're like, oh yeah, every full moon, you know, there's a full moon circle on Mount Shasta. You guys should go. Yeah, duh. We'll be there. No questions asked. There's nowhere else I'd rather be than on Mount Shasta for my 30th birthday at a full moon circle. So we go there, and in Shasta in July, the sun sets super late. I remember being in the diner at like 10 at night, and the sun hadn't set yet. Like that's how dark, or that's how late it gets dark there. And so we're at the full moon circle. The sun had just set, and here is this massive moon. I'm saying massive, coming up over the tree line, and the colors, it wasn't white, it was like oranges and reds and like really pretty like blood moon color moon. And so it's rising. You know, you have locals from Mount Shasta there, you have some natives there, you have little weirdos like us, right? Like trying to have a spiritual experience on this mountain, and you know, it's just good vibes. People are talking and laughing and playing music and singing, and it was super, again, magical. And it happened to be that night a native from Brazil, from a tribe in Brazil, came up and wanted to see Mount Shasta. So we actually had the pleasure of having like a true native, full headgear, like sharing his magic from Brazil. Like it was very like native of Brazil, in the jungle, like type of man. And the music that he shared with us, and just the frequency that this guy emitted was amazing. And he had a translator, and it was so cool to hear his stories and like how he sees things, and just that real untouched of like this world, almost like the civil world understanding to be shared with us. So it was such an honor to be in his presence. It truly was. Just thinking about it, it like gives me chills, gives me God bumps. Now, sitting on that mountain that night, you know, sitting with Mount Shasta, sitting with Mama Shasta, like, okay, Mama, what the fuck am I doing with my life? Because before I went up there, right, when I was in a domestic violent relationship, I had 3 children, I felt like I had a mask on, that nobody actually knew what was happening inside of me. Inside of me, I was dying. I felt soulless. I felt like I had nothing to live for. Like, it felt so dead to me internally, emotionally. And here I had a mask on, so people didn't know. You know, everyone thought I was in a happy relationship. Nobody knew I was getting my ass beat. Nobody knew we were arguing every day in front of our kids. Nobody knew anything about me, actually me. So I'm sitting on Mount Shasta, and I'm like, okay, what am I gonna do with my life? Like, I need out of this relationship. And I knew it. And so I'm like, Mama, just please give me the power that I need to get out of this situation. Give me the power. And in that moment, I fully felt the power I needed in order to make the biggest, scariest move of my life. Getting out of this relationship as a mom of 3, soon to be single mom of 3. In that moment, I just really was able to absorb the power that, you know, she gave me. It also was very, very, very clear that my gift was here to stay. And I couldn't push it away like I had done. I couldn't suppress it any longer. It's here to stay, and we got to figure it out. Whatever it out looks like is to be determined. But all I knew was like, there was no turning this off anymore. It's go time with this. And so, you know, we went home the next day, and on the way home, do not do this. And now in retrospect, like, what were we thinking? But it was divinely guided. I did ask my guides before, but we're driving down the freeway, still in Shasta, and we see this guy, like young kid, on the side of the road, and he was hitchhiking, and we're like, oh, should we pick him up? We're like, yeah, they say yes, let's go. So we pick up this hitchhiker, and, you know, he's like, you know, we're talking like, oh, you know, what are you doing? How's your experience? How was Mount Shasta? How'd she treat you? And so he's like telling us this crazy spiritual experience he had, where we had this crazy spiritual experience. So our minds are like blown, and we're just like sharing stories, high vibing. And, you know, he was trying to get to LA. And we're like, okay, you know, we're driving to Sacramento, we can drop you off there. And later on in the conversation, we're like, well, what's in LA? Like, what's taking you to LA? He's like, well, I don't know if you guys have heard of it, but my twin flame is there. And I'm like, what did you just say? What? Because again, here I am in my head, like, all right, I need clarity around, am I on a twin flame journey or not? And here this random guy that my team told me to pick up is in my backseat saying he's on a twin flame journey. So at that point, I'm like, okay, that's a hard yes. I get it. I see. I understand. Because although it is something that a lot of people know, at this point, it was just coming around. At least for me, in my world, it was just coming around. So the fact that there was another man sitting in my backseat saying he's going to get his twin in LA, it tripped me out. It tripped me out. It's such a trip. So cool. It's so cool. And so we get home, and my higher self, like the connection that I had with my higher self on Mount Shasta, it never went away. I did feel like that connection stayed very strong and very true in those moments when we got home. I needed her clarity and her understanding and the power and the strength and the vision to get me out of that situation. So get home, and, you know, you start embodying all that good stuff and flip my life upside down. So that was the first trip. The second trip, I go back with Rosanna, but this time we're with 5 girls total. So me and 4 others. And we're having yet again another magical experience. You know, we're going to all of these different sacred sites and allowing them to enjoy the magic. And as I'm sitting here watching these women have their own spiritual experience and how they were evolving and how they were changing, it feels so good to be of service. And anyone who's helped, I know you know that. It just feels so good. So here I'm like, oh, here's a little Lexy idea. Oh, I guess it wasn't this Lexy. My higher self's like, hey, you need to go back and you need to bring some friends. But here we are having this experience, and it just felt so good to be there and just enjoying that experience with them. So, we went to a bunch of the sites, and the main one from that trip that stands out to me is going to Plato's Cave. Plato's Cave is old lava tubes that, obviously there's no lava in them, that are dormant now. And you can walk through, like literally walk into Mother Earth. It is the coolest experience, coolest thing. To be able to walk inside, like you're fully covered in a tube of earth, which was the first time that I've ever done anything like that. And so we're like walking down the tube, and it's really cool because as you're walking to like the main tube where it like actually goes into Mother Earth, there are spots where like the lava would have blown open, and in that spot there's like a beautiful green scenery. So you're like walking and then you see this beautiful scenery. You keep walking some more, there's another beautiful green scenery as you're like walking through these caves. So fascinating how Mother Earth works. And at the very end, before you go in, there's like a little jungle before you get into it. So we're there, we're like walking into like the main place, and here this massive white owl flies over us. And I'm talking like Harry Potter pretty owl, like literally flies over us. Now for me, owls in general always meant twin flame for me. So I'm like, nah, here's another sign of that. It was really cool. So we're like walking in, owl flies over. I'm like, oh, this is right where I need to be. Here goes another synchronicity. So we're like walking in the cave, and we have like one flashlight, and all of us have our phones as the flashlights. And at first it's just like sandy, and then it starts to get rocky. Now, before we get to the rocks, like the big rocks, I'm like looking on the ground, and there's not really any like nature really. It's mostly like sand and dirt. So I'm like walking, and I see this little baby stick, and in my mind's eye it like almost glowed, where I'm like, oh, that's weird. Why is there a stick here? Like, you didn't see anything else. You didn't see leaves. You didn't see sticks. You didn't see anything. It was just sand and then a random stick. I was like, oh, that's strange. So we keep going in, and it starts to get really dark, where it's almost like unsafe because these are lava rocks, so they're extremely sharp. And the path that you could walk on, where it was just like sand, there's no more. It literally is us going over boulders at this point. I'm like, we should probably turn back. This isn't smart. So we kind of like work our way back real slowly, and on the cave's wall, our backs were against the wall of this lava cave. And as we have our backs against the wall, all five of us, I close my eyes and I can hear, like, it almost sounds like Earth's heart. It sounds so dramatic, but it did. Or it was like, wah, wah, wah. And in my head, I'm like, damn, Lexy, you're tripping. Like, what are you hearing? And then one of the girls with me, she's like, am I the only one that hears that? Like, noise? And I'm like, no, I heard it too. I'm like, oh my God, it literally sounds like Mother Earth has a heartbeat right now, and I love it. So we're continuing to walk out of the cave, and I'm running my hands across the wall, and there's like these really deep gouges in the wall that are like slits in the wall of this lava cave. And I'm rubbing across it, and I hear stop and look, and I'm like, okay, look at what? And so I'm like, okay, where my hand is, let me look. And so I take my flashlight, and I'm like looking in this crack of the wall, and there's this little pebble inside. I was like, oh, there's something in there. I was like, oh, I want to get it out. Oh, that stick. In my mind's eye, I see the stick that was glowing when we first walked in. I was like, okay, I'm gonna grab it. I'm gonna get this thing out. So I get the stick, I come back, which again, how the hell did I find that perfect slit with the pebble in it again? Find it, and I get this pebble out. I'm like, oh, it's cute. I'm taking it home. So I take it home, and a few, like, I want to say like maybe a year later, I was sitting with one of my girls, and I was like, oh, I have to show you something, and I don't know why. They're telling me to show you this. We were having a session at my house, and I go in my room and I grab it, this little pebble, and she's like, Lexy, do you know what this is? And I'm like, no, it's like something I found in the wall at Mount Shasta. It's like a little pebble I found on the wall. It's like, no, this is a black pearl. I found a freaking black pearl in the wall slit in a lava cave at Mount Shasta. Mind blowing. I have it here so you guys can see it. So that there is the black pearl that I found at Mount Shasta. I could not fucking believe it. I could not believe it. So I tested against my teeth. I'm like, oh my God, this is a real pearl. I go to the first person and actually got a ring made of it first. Yes, it's a black pearl. I could not believe it. I could not believe it. I still can't believe it. But that for me is a very physical, I can touch it, I can feel it, of like, spirit is real. Magic is real. So whenever I need like that little boost of like, nah girl, magic is real, I get my little black pearl and I hold it to remind myself that, hey, this is real. Now on that trip, we visited all the different sites. We had went to Moss Spray Falls. Moss Spray Falls is, I go every time. It's that magical. It is so fascinating to be there. I just love the way it looks, which again, you guys got the drift. We went to Moss Spray Falls. Last stop on our little trip. So we go there and I'm sitting on this rock and I very clearly hear as I'm like watching these women have their own experience in front of my eyes. Like, are you ready to be of service? I literally hear this and I'm like, okay, yes, I'm ready to be of service. Because mind you, I'd healed a bunch up to that point of my own. And I started helping people a little bit, dabble into like, what I was understanding and, just kind of what I knew about what I knew. And so I sat there and I like, for a second, I was like, okay, yes, I'm ready. I didn't fully know what I was getting myself into, shall we say. But again, it felt like one of those destined moments, right? Where I was destined to sit on that rock in Moss Spray with 4 girls around me having a crazy spiritual experience to make the vow to be of service. And they're like, okay, you're vowing to be of service. And being of service is a very selfless thing, right? Like the amount of stuff that I've had to go through, not for me, but for others, for me to fully understand what somebody else is going through is huge. It is a very selfless thing to do. Again, at the time, I didn't know it because I was just trying to heal myself from heartbreak. I wasn't trying to heal the world. I wasn't trying to help everybody. I was trying to help myself with heartbreak. But that vow that I took literally changed my whole course of my life. And I knew when I got home, like, all right, it's game time. Like, now is the time where, like, strap up. We're going to go ahead and, help heal the world if we can. Like, I want to make a dent. I want to help people become the very best version of them. I think now as I've healed myself, the only way we heal this outside world is if we can heal our internal world, because our internal world is a direct reflection of it on the outside. They mirror each other. So that for me is the only way that I think we can actually change the world, is more people healing their own emotional and mental bodies. So being of service, that was what I gained from that trip. So we go home and I start to embody this. And yeah, the magic of helping somebody it's so fun and so rewarding, and I just love it. I absolutely love it. Like being behind the chair when I was doing hair, you help people feel beautiful, but they leave your chair and there's no real substance, right? It's just like they have cute hair, which I killed it on hair, but I wanted their internal to be better. I wanted them to feel pretty without any makeup on, without their hair done, with their hair up in a ponytail. And that's the kind of power now that I'm able to give people. I'm able to give them true love for self, true happiness that's long lasting, that's long term, that their energy has like a flavor about it now. That's the kind of impact that I'm able to make now as of service, right? So when we get home and I start helping people, and it's just becoming more and more real of like, I am of service. And at this time again, my higher self was still very connected to me, and I was helping people connect with their higher self now. And we go back up to Mount Shasta. So now for the 3rd time, this time now I took 13 women with me. We had a goddess retreat and it was so fun. Like this one was really, 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 really fun. Having that many people there, again, everyone having their own experience, everyone having an understanding of what magic is and evolving and growing right in front of our eyes. And the sisterhood that was connected, created, that community, I'm like, oh, this is what it's about. We need sisters. We need a community. We need people around us that get us, that see us, that understand us at the very core of who we are without anything extra, just who we are. So many of us run around with a mask on, and in that moment with us just being raw and authentic and sharing from a vulnerable place, Again, magic. I think that's like the 100th time I've said it in this podcast, but it's freaking magic. Like that is what it is. It is magic. Magic is real. Yeah, it's so fun. So on that trip, again, we did the same thing. We visited the sites, and we went to, one of the cool things we did that trip that I hadn't done before was we went to the Obsidian Mountain. And so you actually can find obsidian on the floor. It's like literally like spread across, just laying there, where you're able to pick up rainbow obsidian, which that was really, really cool. And we got to like take some home. Obviously we didn't go crazy, but we did take some. And I remember the airport when we went to the airport, all of us, because we all had rocks in our bag, and they were kind of big. We all got stopped at the checkpoint, like, what is this? And we need to search your bag. Literally every single one of us got searched. So if you are going to go there and go in the airport, make sure you have a checked-in bag, so you don't have to deal with them searching your bag. But even in that moment, like, I remember we were late. Like, we were late. We had 2 cars, and one of the girls driving, she was like a slower driver, and we were already running late. So the plane waited for us. When does that ever happen? When does a plane wait for anybody? They waited for us to go through checkout, for all the girls to get there. I lost my phone. The girl ended up finding it on the coast, on the train. Yeah, again, magic is real, and how protective and how supported we were. Again, that was a very big takeaway from me. But on that trip, having me see that many people having an impact, I guess me having an impact on that many people, it showed me what of service actually looks like. It gave me the feeling of what it means to be of service. That trip too, the one thing that was really cool about how I set that trip up is I allowed my higher self to literally take care of everything, from who was there to where we stayed to what airline, like all of it. Literally my higher self booked that trip from beginning to end. That support that I felt in that whole process, it was just so evident. We are protected. We are guided. Like, I have nothing to worry about. Look how beautiful this trip was, to the point where the airport's waiting for us, phones being found after I left it. Like, it was just, again, it's showing you how real spirituality can be. So me having the honor of going up to Mount Shasta those 3 times have literally changed who I am. Again, it flipped my life upside down. It gave me the power to flip my life. It gave me the understanding that I am of service. And then it showed me what it actually looked like to be of service. Those 3 things, I still am benefiting from them. I'm still learning from those trips. I'm still really processing still. And we're talking years later. I'm still getting like, remember that? Oh, that's right. Look at that. And like connecting it back. If you have an opportunity to go on a retreat, I highly suggest you guys take it. Now, for those of you that are interested in either taking a retreat with me or with somebody else, I'm going to give you guys a couple pieces that you guys can take away to help you with the intention, the integration, and then ultimately the embodiment. So let's break these things down. So intention. Anytime you go on any retreat, you have to, 1, know what the intentions are of the person who's hosting it. And 2, you have to set your own intentions. So when it comes to the person who's hosting it, as a healer, we have a very big responsibility. The host of anything, it could even be like a circle. Like, again, being a host, you are in a very big position of power, because what you set are going to affect the people that are going to be connected to you. And when a group of people get together in a conscious environment and all of them are aligning with something, that's where the power comes from. That's where you have these huge momentum, like timeline jumps. It's because, again, there's a whole bunch of people that are collectively together with the same intention in the same direction. So asking the person who's hosting, like, hey, what's your intentions for this? Whenever I set a retreat, the intention is set. For me, I have like an overall theme of what my intentions are with anybody that connects to me. Even you listening to this, like, my intention is very clear. I am here to assist people in getting to their highest timeline possible, to help them integrate in their higher self into physical form. And that's my intention. So everything that I do, every move that I make, that is the direction in which I am taking. And so anybody who's on the journey with me, that's the direction we're going. Now, outside of that, when I go to do like independent retreats, or when I go to do an intensive with my client, right? Like, let's say a client wants to come to me because they want to get ready for their divine partner. So the intention that we're setting is, over the next 8 weeks, we're going to take a look at all the things that are preventing you from your conscious partnership. So all the stuff coming up, that is what we're going to be looking at. That is the lens or the perception in which we're going to be seeing what's coming up. So when you're on a retreat and you set an intention for something, the lens that you're looking at for the synchronicities, for the understanding, for the feelings, all of that is going to be through the perception of the intention that you set. So again, intentions are vital. Now, when it comes to the intentions, right, you set these intentions, you have an amazing trip, and then you have to go home. So on the trip, it's almost like you get a false sense of something, and that something is connected to your intentions. So let's take that first trip of mine, right? I went to Mount Shasta to, 1, get clarity of what the hell am I doing with my life? And 2, my second intention was, am I on a twin flame journey? Is this real? Is this craziness that I'm feeling, is it real? So again, the lens in which I'm looking at this trip, the song playing, the hitchhiker that gets in my ride, the sitting on Mount Shasta and feeling the power, all of that is to help me integrate in the intention in which I'm setting. So when you get home, you have to actually integrate in the understanding. And how do we integrate in anything? It's through pain, right? It's through us having life smack us in the face with something, and us having to process it, and us having to heal whatever it's connected to. That is where we integrate in. And when we integrate in these understandings, then we can actually get to the embodiment. So when we're trying to embody something, again, tied to the intention, when that process is happening, the embodiment is held up through the integration process. So when you're triggered and you're in a slump, because anybody who's gone on a retreat knows there's like a crazy high and then you got a crazy down, because you can't go, there's no going up without going down, right? You have to do both. You go up to go down. You have to kind of stay more mellow in life, right? Like, that's like our job. We want to stay where there's just little peaks and little valleys. When we go on a retreat, because it's such a high peak, there's an equal valley, and it's supposed to be that way. Because again, that's where we get the information we need to help us actually embody whatever the intention is, whatever the information is that's come in. That's where we actually get the embodiment of it. So the embodiment for me on that first trip, right, was like me flipping my life upside down. And when I was in the process of flipping my life upside down, that was the hardest thing I've done. It was so difficult. It was so hard. But again, I had the feeling from Mount Shasta of what that power looks like. So when I'm sitting there like, how the fuck am I going to be a mom of 3 kids right now on my own? How am I going to do that? In those moments, I was able to connect to the feeling that I had at Mount Shasta. So that false sense that you get of the power that I had on Mount Shasta, the reason why that happened, we can connect to it when we need it. When we are in the valley and we're like, I don't know how this is going to work. You tap into that feeling that you had. So when you're on these retreats, it's really important to almost like screenshot, if you can, the feelings that you get. The feeling is what's going to help you in those valleys. So as you're there, you do want to be present to absorb this feeling that you're having. Because again, the feeling is what gives us the ability to manifest it in. Not a thought. A thought is just a thought, right? It's not going to bring that to us. The feeling is what brings us the manifestation. So if we're trying to actually possess a power, right, we have to know how that feeling feels in those valleys. And then eventually get there and you embody it. And that power is just your basic baseline now, where you don't need anything outside of you. Because again, you went through some shit that gave you the power. You don't get anything for free. If you're setting an intention for something, best believe you got to go through it. And it's like that saying, right? You have to like go through the opposite in order to get what you want, right? It's like when you go to the gym and you're like, oh, I feel so weak right now. Well, yes, in that moment you feel weak, but you're actually getting stronger. It's the same thing with anything that you set, any intention that you set, you have to go through some stuff to get it. Or it's not yours, right? reality. You didn't earn it. You gotta earn things here. There's nothing that's given away for free. Right? You gotta earn it. Reality is when you earn it, you take, it's a little more prideful that way. All right, well, that's it for this episode. I hope you guys enjoyed it. As always, right? If you're watching this on YouTube, please like, comment, share. Anyone you think needs to hear this. If you're on one of our platforms, and I really appreciate you listening in on that. Likewise, please follow, share, subscribe, and also, if you're not already, please follow me on IG at Awaken with Lexy. That's where I'm going to have all kinds of updates. Any of the lives that I do, it's going to be all there. And follow along with this series. We're on the second video of the series. We have 6 more, so stay tuned. I still haven't told you what that song is about, but I will tell you in 2 episodes from now, so stay tuned. All right, well, that's it for now, guys. Bye.